End of semester video reflection. Course understanding. Course overview. ECE 122 Social Justice Nurturing Community. This social justice course concentrates on critical reflection, systemic equity, and the intentional creation of inclusive learning environments for young children. Its core intention is to challenge future educators to look beyond individual biases and examine how structural power, privilege, and systemic oppression manifest in early learning spaces. Main subjects explored: the anti-bias framework, enforcing the 4 core goals of anti-bias education: recognition, diversity, justice, and activism. Systemic barriers and privilege, unpacking how race, class, gender, ability, and family structure impact a child's success to opportunities. Colonization and indigenous perspectives, examining the historical ongoing impacts of the residential school system in Canada. Inclusive pedagogy, designing environments, materials, and lesson plans that truly mirror various lived experiences. Significance to the early childhood education profession. Children form ideas about race, gender, and social status as early as 6 months of age. Early childhood educators are specially positioned to hold societal biases before they become deeply entrenched. By embedding social justice into early pedagogy, educators ensure that isolated children feel safe, valued, and capable of achieving their full potential. This foundation nurtures critical thinkers who will grow up to challenge injustice in their own communities. Pre-existing knowledge, variations, and involvement before ECE 122. Before taking this course, my interpretation of variations and involvement was rooted in a traditional surface level framework often referred to as the tourist approach. Celebration of differences. Inclusion meant celebrating cultural holidays, tasting international foods, and displaying various flags. The concept of colorblindness. I believe that treating each child the same without acknowledging differences in race, skill, or background was the fairest path to equality. Assume neutrality. I viewed early childhood classrooms as naturally neutral, secure spaces that were automatically sheltered from the political systemic prejudices of the mature world. What I learned: deepening interpretation during ECE 122. Through this course, my viewpoint shifted from passive multiculturalism to active structural anti-bias education. Equity over equality. I learned that treating children identically equality can unintentionally maintain disbenefits. True equity means distributing attention, adaptive tools, and symbolization in accordance with every child's special social and physical requirements. The danger of tokenism. Choosing a single different book or adding a single doll to the shelf is deficient. Various symbolizations must be woven seamlessly into daily play, artwork, storytelling, and curriculum. The construct of intersectionality. I learned that a child's identity is shaped by overlapping factors such as socioeconomic status, language, gender expression, and racial background. Educators must identify these intersections to fully support a child's family dynamic. Personal transformation, shifting values, beliefs, and attitudes. The readings, self-reflections, and discussions in ECE 122 initiate a profound internal shift, transforming how I view my responsibilities as an individual and a professional. From neutrality to disruption, I no longer believe that an educator can stay neutral. Silence in face of bias teaches children that unfairness is acceptable. I am moving from a passive observer to an active disruptor of discriminatory language and behavior. Unpack personal privilege. The course forced me to confront my own unearned privileges and hidden biases. Identifying where my experiences do not arrange with isolated families helps me approach parents with true humility instead of judgment. Value of vulnerability. I now accept that making mistakes is part of the learning process. I'm committed to listening to uncomfortable feedback from families or colleagues, viewing critiques as vital chances to improve my teaching practice. Commitments to truth and reconciliation. As an appearing early childhood educator, I identify that reconciliation is a lifelong professional duty, not a finite task. I make the following concrete commitments to honor the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, TRC, calls to action, specifically the 12th call to action, which demands the development of culturally suitable early childhood education programs for Indigenous children. Truth and reconciliation commitments. 1. Liberate the physical classroom environment. What I will do, I will conduct a thorough inspection of all books, puzzles, dolls, and dramatic play items in my classroom to completely remove Eurocentric biases, romanticized historical depictions, or romanticized caricatures of Indigenous peoples. How I will do it. I will actively consult resources such as Indigenous-led publishing houses, local community resource groups, and established toolkits. I will replace outdated materials with contemporary stories written by First Nations, Inuit, and Métis authors that showcase modern Indigenous families. Why it matters. Young children absorb structural messaging from their physical surroundings. Ensuring accurate symbolization deters Indigenous children from experiencing erasure while deterring non-Indigenous children from forming harmful generalized stereotypes. 2. Weave important place-inspired Indigenous education into the daily routine. What I will do. I will move beyond treating Indigenous culture as a marginalized theme week in November. Instead, I will integrate land-inspired learning principles and local Indigenous worldviews into our daily outdoor play and science explorations. How I will do it. I will establish an age-appropriate daily routine where the children thank the local ecosystem, the soil, trees, water, and wildlife for scaffolding our play. I will learn the traditional territory names of my operating region and guide children to interpret what it means to care for the local geography. Why it matters. This practice nurtures deep environment stewardship and instills a basic respect for Indigenous concepts of interconnectedness, helping children interpret their place on the land from a young age. 3. Commit to lifelong Indigenous-led professional evolution. What I will do. I will constantly educate myself on the true history of Canada, including the intergenerational trauma caused by residential schools in the 60s scoop, without depending on my Indigenous colleagues to do the emotional labor for me. How I will do it. I will dedicate professional evolution hours to complete certified Indigenous-led courses such as the University of Alberta's Indigenous Canada program and participate in local community incidents hosted by friendship centers. Why it matters. Educators cannot teach what they do not interpret. By anchoring my education in historical truth, I protect the children in my care revisionist histories and ensure that my advocacy for systemic reconciliation stays specific and informed. Professional practice, guiding future work. Moving forward, the lessons from ECE 122 will serve as the structural lens through which I design my entire teaching practice. Co-constructing curriculum with families. I will reject top-down planning. I will invite families to share their home languages, cultural traditions, and special structures, integrating these assets directly into our monthly programming. Empowering children to speak up. When a child makes an exclusionary comment, example, boys can't play here, or your skin looks dirty, I will treat it as a critical learning moment. I will guide them using open-ended questions to develop fairness and reconstruct empathy. Reflective goal setting. I will keep a weekly reflective journal to monitor my educational choices. This practice will help me analyze which children receive the most praise, how behavioral predictions are enforced, and whether my room design unconsciously privileges certain groups over others.